If you're taking a look at this video, it probably means you're one of two individuals. You're either person number one, where you're a complete brand new person when it comes to trading and investing, yet you see, you understand, and more importantly believe what it can do for you long term, whether it be hitting those 4-figure months, hitting those 5 figures. You want to get to that point. However, you don't want to get to it doing what majority of traders and investors typically go through. That's oftentimes losing thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars in the process just to learn how to properly do it. Or you're person number two, where you're somewhere in the midst of this right now. You just want to know what is it that you need to do, what is it that you're essentially missing in order for you to really push it in a consistent manner so that you can get to those goals. In my years of being able to coach individuals, there are a number of habits that consistent, experienced traders and investors typically do. Some beginners just take a lot more time to do. They often miss it due to misconceptions. One of the biggest ones are that you need a lot of money in order for you to really push trading and investing, but also at the same time thinking that you need more time that you need to in order to really push things the way that you want. That couldn't be further from the truth. Now, let me take some time to explain and break down why for a second. So, in my 4.5 years of being able to trade and invest, I realized that there were a number of things that I did not realize at the beginning that I realize now. The first thing was in terms of how to get from point A to point B in an accelerated manner. So my very first 2 months of being able to actually trade and invest, I made $1,200 in my very first month, a part of my first trading group, and then I made $2,100 total in my second month. As you can see, this is probably a good example as to what my progression chart in terms of profit net loss would typically be like. Now, as you can see, this is something that is still great. We have 500, 10, 1,000, 1,500, and then 2. This is still great because this still shows profitability. However, the process of how we get to that point is something that is super important, because as you can see, this line is very volatile. Now, what does this essentially mean? This essentially means that as I was trading, yes, were there gains, but more importantly, I was taking as much loss as I typically would when it comes to my level of gains, thus holding and slowing me down. Now, I'm going to explain for a second, right? I'm actually going to come over here to explain before we actually understand what does that essentially mean. But as you can see, it is very, very different when it comes to the experienced trader. As you can see, the experienced trader's line chart is a lot more linear, right? However, what's also super interesting is the fact that we have these stagnant moments where things just kind of go nil. Right? Now, what does this essentially tell you? This essentially means that the consistent trader is a consistent and experienced trader, not because they don't take a loss, but because they're able to regulate how much of a loss they're willing to take. But more importantly, they will spend more time planning a trade out, waiting patiently for higher probability setups, ones that work in their favor, before actually taking some time to execute. Right? Now, this actually gets into the point of what it is that a lot of beginners fall into the trap of. A lot of beginners feel like they have to wake up every single day on the New York session or the future session, whichever one that you trade, feel like you got to trade every single day. That's actually not the case. Experienced investors, traders will spend 90% of their time planning and then 10% of their time executing, whereas beginners do the exact opposite. Right? And now what this means is they'll spend 90% of their time executing and then 10% planning. Now, the reason why this is super important is because now if we can actually take some time to come over here and actually break down what executing essentially means. Execution is broken down into 3 categories. 60% trading psychology, or TP, 30% risk management, or RM, and then 10% analysis. Now, I want you to take some time to think about this like you're trying to chop down a tree. An individual will probably spend maybe 5 days sharpening an axe so that way they can chop down a tree in probably about 3 or 4 hours, right? However, for the individual that probably spends maybe 3 or 4 hours sharpening an axe, it would probably take them weeks, if not months, to chop down a tree. When it comes to trading and investing, it is absolutely no different. The reason why the experienced trader is a lot more successful is because they'll take time to plan so that way they can be prepared for whatever trading psychology they need to confidently trade. They'll understand what kind of risk that they're willing to take in order to find out if they're correct, and more importantly, the 10% of analysis, they've done the necessary homework in order to find out whether or not what they see actually supports what they have. Whereas when it comes to the beginner will spend time blindly trading. The reason why this is a problem is because now we're talking about trading psychology, we're talking about fear and greed, we're talking about over leveraging ourselves when it comes to risk. So this is one of the main reasons why majority of beginners do not get to the outcome of 4 figures a month, 5 figures a month, until probably years down the line, because of the fact that majority of individuals fail to see that patience actually pays you when it comes to this game.